The 2026 World Cup is over. Spain are champions. FIFA's president called it the greatest human, social, and cultural event mankind has ever witnessed. And Europe's response has been a revolt. Formal complaints, re-election snubs, boycotted finals, and public calls for Infantino to resign. The tournament broke every attendance record, generated $15 billion in revenue, and ended with the most controversial officiating summer in football history. The moment the final whistle blew in New Jersey, the backlash that had been building across the entire tournament surfaced all at once. Germany refusing to back Infantino's re-election, UEFA's president boycotting the final, ethics complaints filed with FIFA and the IOC, European Parliament members demanding an investigation, La Liga's president calling for Infantino to step down. This is what Europe actually thinks about what just happened, and it goes much deeper than one red card. Start with the incident that turned discomfort into open revolt. July 1st, 2026. USA striker Balogun receives a red card in the round of 32 against Bosnia. Automatic one-game suspension. FIFA's own competition regulations, Article 10.5, are explicit. Mandatory, no review mechanism. Every team in the tournament had been told exactly this before a ball was kicked. Then the call. U.S. President Donald Trump calls Gianni Infantino directly to intervene on Balogun's behalf. Trump later confirms the call publicly. The suspension is then paused for 1 year under Article 27 of the FIFA Disciplinary Code, a provision never previously applied to a red card issued during the tournament itself. Balogun plays against Belgium. The USA loses 4-1 anyway. The comparison that made the hypocrisy impossible to defend. England's Jarell Quansah received a red card for an incident widely considered comparable to Balogun's in the exact same round. Quansah served his suspension. No phone call was made. No Article 27 was invoked. One player played. One player watched from home. No credible sporting distinction between the two incidents was ever identified by anyone. An additional detail emerged. According to reporting cited by multiple outlets, the suspension decision was reportedly made by a single FIFA disciplinary committee figure, Mohammed Al-Kamali of the UAE, without consulting other committee members, meaning the decision to override an automatic ban was not a full committee process. It was one person, after a phone call from a head of state. The relationship surrounding that call is well documented. In December 2025, Infantino created a new FIFA Peace Prize, the first in the organization's history, and awarded it to Trump at the World Cup draw. FIFA opened an office inside Trump Tower. Infantino attended Trump's inauguration and multiple White House events. He accompanied Trump on a trip to Qatar and Saudi Arabia in May 2025, arriving over 2 hours late to a FIFA Congress as a result, triggering UEFA's delegates to walk out. UEFA released a formal statement describing the Balogun decision as unprecedented, incomprehensible, and unjustifiable, crossing a red line. The dam had broken. What followed was not a single complaint. It was a wave. Alexander Ceferin is UEFA's president. He is also a FIFA vice president, one of the most senior figures in the global governance of this sport. On July 19, 2026, Spain played in a World Cup final. Ceferin did not attend. A European federation was playing for the trophy. The president of European football was not in the building. The New York Times reported his absence was a deliberate protest over FIFA's handling of the Balogun matter, among other disagreements. He had attended the tournament's opening match in Mexico City on June 11th. He had originally planned to attend the final. Something changed. The Balogun decision changed it. But the Balogun affair was not the only grievance sitting behind that empty seat. Ceferin had also raised concerns about FIFA's failure to secure U.S. immigration clearance for Somali referee Omar Artan. A qualified FIFA official denied entry to the United States, unable to officiate at a tournament his own governing body had approved him for. That official was later given the UEFA Super Cup, Aston Villa versus PSG, as what multiple outlets described as a consolation assignment. FIFA could not get its own referee into its own tournament. Ceferin had separately raised concerns about FIFA's treatment of Iran throughout the tournament and had sought to understand the disciplinary rationale behind the Balogun reversal directly with Infantino. His concerns, on the record, remained unresolved to his satisfaction. This was not the first rupture between UEFA and Infantino. In May 2025, European delegates, including Ceferin and the 8 UEFA members of the FIFA Council, walked out of a FIFA Congress after Infantino arrived more than 2 hours late following his trip with Trump to Qatar and Saudi Arabia. UEFA called it deeply regrettable and accused Infantino of prioritizing private political interests over the organization he runs. The walkout did not produce change. The World Cup final boycott was the next escalation. When the president of European football refuses to attend a final featuring a European team, the message is not subtle. It is the loudest diplomatic protest available to him short of resignation, and every federation across the continent was watching when he sent it. The FIFA presidential election is scheduled for March 2027 in Rabat, Morocco. Infantino is the only declared candidate. Candidacy submissions close November 18, 2026. And in the weeks following the World Cup, FIFA's European director, Elkan Mammadov, was reported to have toured Europe's 16 World Cup participating national associations, gathering signatures for a formal letter backing Infantino's re-election campaign. Most signed. Germany did not. The German Football Association, the DFB, under President Bernd Neuendorf, refused to sign. According to Bild, some European federations that did sign are now reportedly reconsidering in light of the Balogun affair. Germany's refusal is not a one-time reaction. Neuendorf also declined to back Infantino ahead of the 2023 FIFA Congress in Kigali, citing lack of transparency and insufficient explanation of FIFA's decision-making. This is a sustained, documented position from one of European football's most influential governing bodies. Austria's response was different in tone, but significant in direction. OFB figure Pröll stated publicly that recent events have changed the situation. His precise framing, "Bring the facts. If there are none, it will become difficult for us to support Infantino." He called the Trump phone call a shame that had damaged the reputation of football while stopping short of an outright refusal. A conditional endorsement from a European federation is still a signal, and not a favorable one. England's position is revealing in a different way entirely. The FA had reportedly prepared a formal letter backing Infantino's re-election before the Balogun controversy erupted, and then declined to confirm to Telegraph Sport whether that letter was ultimately sent. Former FA chairman David Bernstein and unspecified figures in Westminster have called for Infantino to resign outright. England has structural incentive to stay aligned with FIFA. They are expected to be confirmed as 2027 Women's World Cup host and have future men's bid ambitions of their own. The silence on the letter speaks for itself. La Liga president Javier Tebas went further than any federation figure. He said publicly and directly that Infantino should step down, accusing FIFA of destroying the football industry by prioritizing an expanded international calendar over domestic leagues. He said many people privately oppose Infantino but stay silent, that there is no opposition candidate because nobody wants to stand just to lose, and that the system is rotten at its core. Norway has a standing history of opposition to Infantino dating back to the 2023 Congress and is listed as a formal supporter of the Fair Square ethics complaint. Across the continent, the picture is not of a rebellion that will remove him. It is of a continent that has simply stopped pretending to agree. The formal complaints against Infantino did not begin with the 2026 World Cup. In December 2025, London-based human rights NGO Fair Square filed a complaint with FIFA's own ethics committee alleging that Infantino had committed repeated breaches of FIFA's political neutrality rules. The specific basis, his public support for Trump and the creation of the FIFA Peace Prize, awarded to Trump at the World Cup draw in Washington. The complaint was supported by the Norwegian Football Federation and approximately 50 members of the European Parliament. FIFA's ethics committee does not comment on ongoing cases. As of mid-July 2026, 7 months after the complaint was filed, FIFA had provided no public update whatsoever. The possible sanctions under FIFA's ethics code for a breach of the political neutrality duty include a ban of up to 2 years from football activity. Lesser sanctions include warnings, reprimands, fines, and mandated compliance training. None of these have been announced. The Balogun decision prompted a second complaint, this time filed with the International Olympic Committee. Fair Square went to the IOC's Ethics Commission, noting that Infantino holds IOC membership as FIFA president. The complaint alleged breaches of the IOC's own political neutrality rules and asked the IOC to examine whether political pressure influenced the Balogun suspension decision and whether a Trump-affiliated data collection operation had links to a FIFA-endorsed fan platform used during the tournament. IOC President Kirsty Coventry said before the complaint's formal filing that the IOC would look into it if received. The complaint was filed. The IOC examined it. And on July 24, 2026, 5 days after the World Cup final, the IOC announced it would not open a formal investigation. The Ethics Commission stated the complaint concerned FIFA's own governance, management, and government relations rather than Infantino's specific conduct toward the Olympic body. Outside their jurisdiction, no investigation. Separately, dozens of European lawmakers were reported by ESPN and the Associated Press to be gathering support to launch a European Parliament investigation into Infantino's role in the Balogun decision following Trump's direct intervention. EU officials publicly demanded fairness and transparency from FIFA in the days after the reversal. 3 separate institutional complaints inside 7 months. 1 dismissed on jurisdiction, 1 left unanswered for 7 months and counting, 1 still being assembled. The complaints against Infantino are multiplying faster than any single one of them is being resolved. With the 2026 tournament barely finished, Infantino told Swiss broadcaster Blue Sport that expanding the 2030 World Cup to 64 teams, up from the currently planned 48, is definitely an issue that will be examined and discussed in the relevant committees. The 2026 tournament had 48 teams, 104 matches, 16 host cities, and ran for 38 days. A 64-team format would mean even more matches, more qualifying disruption, and more strain on a club season that domestic leagues have already been fighting to protect. The reaction from football's own governing bodies was close to unanimous opposition. UEFA President Ceferin called it not a good idea for both the World Cup itself and continental qualifying competitions. AFC President Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim Al Khalifa warned that opening the door to 64 teams risks escalating demands further to 80 to 132 and described the likely outcome in one word: chaos. CONCACAF President Victor Montagliani said expansion to 64 teams is not right for the tournament itself or the broader football ecosystem, from national teams down to club competitions, leagues, and players. The structural logic behind Infantino's push is not difficult to identify. More teams means more matches. More matches means more broadcast inventory. More broadcast inventory means higher rights fees. FIFA's commercial cycle already doubled from $7.5 billion to $15 billion across the jump from 32 to 48 teams. The same calculation, applied again, produces the same result on paper. The question every objecting federation is asking is who actually pays for that calculation, and the answer, every time, is domestic football. And against all of it, the boycotted final, Germany's re-election snub, Austria's conditional support, England's silence, 2 unresolved ethics complaints, the IOC's rejection, a forming European Parliament inquiry, and now near universal opposition to 64-team expansion. Infantino's re-election is not considered in serious jeopardy. CONMEBOL has pledged unanimous backing. African federations are aligned. The Guardian reported he holds support from approximately 200 of FIFA's 211 member countries. No opposition candidate has emerged. Candidacy submissions closed November 18, 2026. La Liga's Tebas explained exactly why nobody is running against him. Nobody wants to stand just to lose. The system, he said, is rotten at its core, and the man at the center of all of it is heading toward a 4th term regardless. Step back and look at the full picture. A presidential phone call that paused an automatic red card ban. A tournament co-host's leader intervening directly in the disciplinary process of the sport's own governing body. UEFA's president boycotting a final featuring a European team. Germany refusing to endorse a re-election campaign. 2 ethics complaints, 1 ignored for 7 months, 1 rejected on jurisdiction. A European Parliament inquiry taking shape. and a proposal to make the World Cup even bigger, opposed by every continental federation except the one proposing it. Infantino called this the greatest event mankind has ever witnessed. Europe's football institutions spent the aftermath filing complaints and withholding signatures instead. Is this the moment European football finally forces accountability, or does Infantino win 400 votes in Rabat next March and nothing changes at all? Drop your verdict below, subscribe, and stay close.